Claire Point Zero. Now, I know it's been a while. I've been absolutely drowning in uni work and office work and socializing, but it does feel like work sometimes. I'm kidding, friends out there watching. But today I wanted to talk about a few albums. Now, I am being a bit lazy in this regard. I probably should do a video on them each, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized some of the praises that I'm going to give to one album definitely relate to the other. And also, this is probably the genre that I have the most knowledge in. And so, without further ado, I would like to talk about my small, quite limited collection of hip-hop albums at the moment. Now, I wanted to start off with the very first hip-hop album that I bought as part of my vinyl collection, and also the very first album that I bought as part of my vinyl collection. Now, this one I bought at JB Hi-Fi alongside my record player. And I thought about what kind of album would represent my... I thought about it a bit too much. I probably should have just bought any album and called it a day, but I really wanted to make the first album that I bought quite a special one. And so I bought this. Now, this was the first album I ever bought. This is the incredible Mad Villainy by Mad Villain, which is comprised of the late and great MF Doom and the wonderful mercurial Madlib. Now, this is rightly so known as the Bible of underground hip-hop, and I have really come to have really grown in my appreciation for underground hip-hop this year. Been listening to a lot of Mike, a lot of Earl, Navy Blue, the whole Griselda group, and you can hear in their sound how much reference they have for MF Doom, and especially this particular album, but also the fingerprints of Madlib's production definitely do extend into those underground albums as well. And this is probably, I think, in my opinion, the best collab hip-hop album of all time. I don't think there is another album where two artists are at their peak as much as this one, which is funny because one of the albums that I will talk about in a few minutes is also a collab album that is incredible, but I think this one just about takes the cake. My favorite tracks on this include it's either Raid or Curls. Both songs are very bouncy, very upbeat, but also this album does have quite a lot of pretty haunting, pretty cold production as well that Madlib so expertly executes, cuts, chops, and has his signature sound on it. And then you have more R&B style songs like underrated songs. I mean, everyone loves Accordion, everyone loves All Caps, but I personally am a massive fan of Figaro is probably MF Doom's greatest lyrical performance. The way he rhymes entire bars with each other is pretty insane. But yeah, when coming back to underrated songs, I think Strange Ways, is an amazing song as well. And this album does mean a lot to me. It opened my eyes to what hip hop was outside of just the mainstream that I was listening to when I was younger. The first hip hop album I ever listened to was The Life of Pablo by Kanye, and although I don't have that one on vinyl just yet, this is probably the album that influenced my taste when it comes to opening my eyes and understanding what hip hop kind of really is, what it's about, why it's so fun, why it's so artistic, how challenging it can be, and how much of a vehicle for expression it can be. So rest in peace, MF Doom. This one's been on heavy repeat as of recent as well. Now the next hip hop album that I got is probably by my favorite hip hop artist of all time. It's pretty basic, not too surprising. And probably the artist that I have the most admiration for as an English student, as a writer, as a person that really appreciates the poetic side of rap just as much as the production as well. I got Damn by Kendrick Lamar. Now I know this probably isn't his best album. I do think the common consensus of T-Pab being his best album is true. This is the album that probably in his discography that means the most to me. That's because of how personal, how dark, how reflective, and how often cynical this album can be. And I think that this album really has lifted me out of some pretty tough times, but also given me a lot of fun as well. Like songs like DNA is probably it's just a straight up banger. He sounds angry, he sounds like he's got a point to prove, and he raps just like that. My favorite songs from this album are probably In Pride is one of the most beautiful songs he's ever written, but also Lust, I think, is probably one of the most underrated songs in his entire discography. I really do love it that much. But I think Fear is the song that I come back to most when I really do need to. I think the progression of, while I didn't grow up obviously in the same circumstances as Kendrick did, it is the song that I find that I relate the most to, especially when he talks about how his fear of things just expounds more and more as he gets older, rather than his fears falling away. I think is a really vulnerable and honest look at life and growing up. And I am aware, yes, this album does sound different backwards and forward. The message is different, and I do think the storytelling on this is quite genius. Maybe not to the same kind of complexity as T-Pab, but I still think this is an incredible storytelling album, one of the best ever. Controversially, I do think it deserves the Pulitzer Prize, and I understand that a lot of people will feel that it was a bit of a late delayed awarding of the prize that was really for T-Pab, but I do think this album stands up by itself as well. Even the lower points of this album in terms of quality, I still think this is one of the greatest hip-hop albums of our modern time, and probably the hip-hop album that means the most to me. Now, after that overly pretentious way of understanding rap, I appreciate the poetic side. I know I sounded very arrogant, but I find it important to me. Anyway, after that, I just wanted to get into an album that is probably equally, if not better, than Damn, I know, Tall Order, but one that's just straight up incredible lyricism and really fun, wacky, experimental beats, and probably the most genre-pushing hip-hop album for its time. We have the incredible Aquemini by Outkast. Now, there's an incredible story about this as well, because I got this album maybe 15 minutes after running into the man himself, Andre 3000, in the street outside Pitt Street, Sydney, the Polo store there. He walked out, he was playing his flute, he had his red beanie on. I think he was there to play New Blue Sun, New Blue Sun at the Art Gallery of New South Wales that evening, and I remember seeing him across the street, and I couldn't believe it was him. I was like, oh my god, this is one of my artistic heroes. Like, this guy's a genius. One of probably the greatest rapper, in my opinion, in the top 3 greatest rappers of all time, and he was just across the street, and I asked him for a picture. I'll put it up here if I can be bothered doing editing, and he said yes. It was incredible, and I never forgot that experience. And I got this album in celebration. It was expensive, but it was worth it just for the memories. And although I always loved this album, after I met the guy, my appreciation for it grew and grew and grew. This album is back to front. I don't think there's any skips on this quite long album, but yeah, there's nothing on this album that I would skip. Starts off really strong with Return of the G. Rosa Parks is an incredible song. Skewered on the Barbie with Raekwon. The production on these songs is just back to front incredible, but also I do feel like Big Boy needs a lot more appreciation. He does bring a certain level of lyric, like there's not many artists that can rap next to Andre 3000 and really keep up and just as much push the envelope. And I know it's probably unfair to view him in comparison to Andre. He's his own incredible artist, but I do think Big Boy really does need his own chorus as well. The title track Aquemini has one of Andre's greatest ever verses. The way he rhymes and those inflections are just incredible. But I think my underrated, I talked about an underrated song off of every album so far. Synthesizer with George Clinton is incredible when he starts going synthesizer microwave. I can't do it like he does, but it's so good. Slump, and that 3-track run of Synthesizer, Slump, and then West Savannah is just an incredible few songs. Yes, I do know that Mamacita probably isn't the best song they've ever put out, but I don't think it's really that bad. I've heard, a lot of people criticize it a lot more than it really should be, but this album finishes off incredible as well with Chunky Fire, Nathaniel, Liberation. It's got Erykah Badu on it. This is for such an album with, this is a triple LP, if you guys can see. So 6 sides to this album, and yet not a single dull moment. I think it's Outkast's best album. I know some people disagree. I think they have, 3 or 4 incredible masterpieces, but I don't think they have an album that is as consistently incredible as this one. I think both artists are at their peak, and the artwork is a bit, very 90s, but I love it for that. So that's Aquemini. And finally, to round out my hip-hop collection, there's a few other albums that were debatably hip-hop, but I wanted to save them for another video. They have their own merit that isn't necessarily just related to hip-hop and rap. But when I was talking about in my spiel about Mad Villainy, about how I have another collab album, this is the one. It's a more recent album. This was gifted to me by one of my friends, shout out Julian, and because I previously expressed my love for this album, and it is absolutely incredible. I think Black Thought, out of the I keep saying this, there's so many goats and stuff, but out of the modern rappers, even with the Roots, On Things Fall Apart, I think is one of my favorite performances by any rapper on a group album. But even on his own, he stands up incredibly. If not, he doesn't just stand up, he shines. He's known for that dense, punchy lyricism and delivery. I think he's, if you had to create the perfect rapper in a lab, Black Thought would probably come out. But you can't create the amount of artistic talent and social commentary that's also laced in this album as well. And Danger Mouse, he's such a versatile producer, and when he produces hip hop, I think he's just at his best. I know he does work with a lot of other genres as well, but this album just shows why he even has an album with Doom. And speaking of Doom, he's on this album on the track Belize, which is one of my favorites. But the features on this album are incredible. You got Raekwon, you got Joey Badass, Russ is on here. Russ is cool. Russ is actually quite good on this album. You got Doom, you got A$AP Rocky, Run the Jewels, you got Conway, and yeah, that song with ASAP and Run the Jewels is just phenomenal. The production is, it doesn't stray too much away from your traditional boom bap, but it also has some areas in which it kind of starts to push against the boundaries of what a traditional hip-hop beat is. It can be pretty industrial at times, which I really like, even though it's quite soulful. Cheat Codes, the title track, is incredible. Even the introduction sometimes just starts out with this lush kind of production, and then just Black Thought just rapping his ass off. It's an incredible album. Also one of my favorite, underrated album cover, I think, as well. I think this is, striking. I think it portrays the album well. And yeah, Cheat Codes, a really great, sometimes overlooked hip-hop album of recent times. It only came out, a few years ago now, 2-3 years ago. Yeah, and please give this one a listen if you haven't. It's a real hip-hop lover's treat. And yeah, so that's all the hip-hop albums in my collection so far. There's not many. There's a bunch more I need to collect. I intend to finish off Kendrick's discography at some point. I also intend to get a Kanye album, or a few of them. I do love the guy's older, even some of his more modern music, despite his transgressions. I do think he's an important artist in my music development of music taste. Important enough that I can't skip an album of his when it comes to collecting. Yeah, what else am I missing? A couple more Doom albums, I guess. Food would be great. I want something more new, something fun. I want something underground. Pinball. One I've been listening to recently is Pinball by Mike and Tony Salter. That's an incredible one. West Side Gun album could be cool as well. Or Voir Dire, Alchemist, and Earl Sweatshirt. That's another one I need. But yeah, please comment below if you enjoyed that, and if you have any other hip-hop recommendations for me. I hope to be back soon. I am quite busy, but yeah, I tried to be economical with my video production this time around. I promise I'll try not to do this kind of homogenous genre-based video too much. But yeah, anyway, this was Mikhail from Cloud.0 checking out, and hopefully see you next time for another one.